All right, it is card show week and we got to get prepared. But before we can do that, we need the right equipment. I get asked all the time, it's my first time vending, what do I bring? What display cases do you have? So if you are a first time vendor or an aspiring creator, or just here for the vibes, here's everything you need for your first time vending, or if you just want to upgrade your current arsenal. So before you can even get any equipment, you need inventory. Otherwise, how else are you going to vend at a card show? And a question I get asked a lot is, how much inventory should I start with? And the answer, like many answers in this hobby, are it really depends. Technically, you can start with any amount if you plan on doing smaller shows or like trade nights where tables are less than $100. But if you plan on doing some more mid-sized to bigger shows, I recommend starting with around $10,000 in inventory or cash. And here's how the math works. Typically, at a larger show, you'll sell around 20% of your inventory, also starting around $10,000. So that's around $2,000 in revenue. Typically, the profit margins in Pokemon are around 15%. So if you're buying at 80%, selling at 95%, or buying at 75%, selling at 90%, the profit margins are roughly 15% or so. So if you do 15% times the $2,000 in revenue that you make, that's around $300 in profit. But then you have to consider the fact that there's table costs, travel, accommodation, whatever it may be. So you would be pretty lucky to even break even. So that's typically why I think just starting at least with $10,000 is what I would recommend. That's how much I started with, but of course you can start with any amount. Just give it a shot, see how it goes. Maybe you make more profit than you expected, maybe a little bit less. You can adjust from there. Now let's get into the main part of this video, which is the physical equipment that you'll need. And I'm going to break this down into two parts. The first part I'm going to talk about is the necessary equipment. So equipment I think every card show vendor should have. I'm going to break this into recurring cost and then also one-time cost. And the second part is going to talk about optional equipment. So equipment that I personally use, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have, especially if it's your first time vending. It's always something you can add later on. As always, if you guys have suggestions for other equipment that you use personally or just anything else that I forgot to mention, leave it in the comments down below and let's get started. Oh, and as always, anything that's mentioned in this video will have a link in the description, so check it out if you want. So starting off with the one-time cost or one-time investments are display cases. When I first started, I used just these Amazon display cases. As always, links are in the description. They're around like $80 or so, and they do its job. They're not super great for fitting too many slabs, but they can fit mostly singles in my opinion. And it's something that if you're not sure if you want to do vending for a long time, maybe you just want to try it out, definitely recommend getting it. You can also just return it on Amazon if you use it like once or twice. Amazon is really good about that. But if you do decide to upgrade, which after a few months of vending, I was like, this is super fun. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend the vertical cases from Zion. These are really premium quality. Most vendors typically use these cases once they start to get more serious about it. They are a little bit more expensive. They are around $200 and then maybe a little bit more if you get the risers on the side. So it allows you to hold your case up. That way it's a lot easier to take cards in and out. So that's currently what I use. Also, definitely recommend using the vertical cases, not the horizontal ones, because you can fit more vertical cases on a 6-foot table. That's basically the first thing I think every vendor should have is a display case. The next thing after the display cases are binders. I use the brand Vault X, and I think a lot of other people use Vault X. Super great. They have lots of different colorways. They are typically sold out, so you might not get the exact colors that you want, but I think if you just stalk their Amazon enough or even their website, they'll have options available for you. I used both the 12 pocket and the 9 pocket binders. I don't think there's too big of a difference either way. The 12 pocket binder, of course, fits more cards, but it takes up more space. And I also, the debate between the top loader binder versus just a regular binder that's not a top loader binder is, I think, a little bit overblown. I think for the most part, you don't want to have anything too expensive in your binders anyways. So a top loader binder is just a little bit heavier and bulkier than necessary. But of course, if you just want some peace of mind, you can also get a top loader binder. There's probably some on Amazon. I don't think Vault X has any at the moment, but you can double check me. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need at least to store your inventory for display. Now that you have your display cases and your binders out so that everybody can see your amazing inventory, you need to be able to transport your inventory. And that's why I recommend having a graded card case. This allows you to fit raw cards, graded cards to and from shows. And it's something that even if you don't plan on vending, I still recommend having just so that you can have something that's more secure and safe to transport your inventory. I know some people just use those like leftover ETB boxes to put their cards in, but I would recommend investing in one of these. They're around $50 or so on Amazon. You can probably find some on Zion cases as well, but definitely something I recommend for equipment that pretty much every person should have in the collecting community. Speaking of transporting things, get a cart. A cart is something that I really wish I had my first few shows. I didn't have a cart, so I was just carrying that big display case, my binders, my inventory. I had to do multiple trips and I didn't feel comfortable like leaving stuff in the car by itself. So I would recommend getting a cart so that way you can just carry everything in one trip. You don't even have to use it for vending. A cart is just useful if you ever plan on moving heavier things, moving apartments, whatever it may be. So definitely recommend getting a cart. And the final equipment that I recommend for every vendor to have is a blacklight. A blacklight is super useful, especially for graded cards. Like if you're buying a PSA slab, you can see the holographic pattern to make sure it's an authentic slab. Of course, there are other features you should check out for. Probably more details online if you want to search it up. But also even for raw cards, you can see if there's been any alterations on the raw card. So if you use a black light and you shine it on the back, sometimes people will use like a blue Sharpie to color in some of the white dots. That's obviously not okay if it's not disclosed. A black light will help solve for that, help find it for you. And yeah, definitely something that I recommend. There are people out there that will take advantage of you. So just do your due diligence, especially for higher end cards. Make sure you're careful. So still on the topic of necessary equipment are recurring costs. So costs that you're going to incur every 3 to 4 months, depends how often you're doing card shows. And just going to go over these quickly. They're pretty self-explanatory. Penny sleeves, top loaders, stickers, Sharpies. They're all around $10 per item that I mentioned. Would recommend getting them in bulk if you plan on vending for a long time. 1,000 pack of the top loaders, stickers, penny sleeves. Probably not 1,000 Sharpies, maybe like 3 or 4. But definitely something to keep in mind if you want to protect your cards and also display them in a nice way. You're going to run through the items very fast and hopefully it makes things better and easier for you. But not only do you need physical equipment for a show, there's also really useful apps out there that help you keep track of your transactions at a show, how much profit you made on the day. So that's where today's sponsor comes in, Double Hollow. Double Hollow has this great new vendor hub that's out right now. There's a free trial. The vendor hub is also open to everybody right now. It helps you keep track of how much you spent for a card, how much you made on a card, whether you're taking in trade-up percentage, adding cash on top. It basically just keeps track of everything at your show. So definitely check it out. There's a free trial, as I said, and code FIRETHORN30 for 30% off your first month in premium. If you do want to take your vending journey or your collecting journey a little bit more seriously, check it out. Highly recommend it. And let's get back to the video. So now let's talk about optional card show equipment. This is something that I don't think you necessarily have to have, but still stuff I would recommend if you want to take this a little bit more seriously. It's things that I've either used in the past or I'm currently using. So the first thing I recommend is having a banner or like a table sign, whatever it may be, some sort of physical thing to represent your brand. I think just having this is very useful if you ever decide to do content creation, social media, or honestly, even if you don't do that, I think it's still just a good thing to have. It helps build up trust in your community, recognizability, so that way if you do have repeat customers, they know where to find you and what to look for. The brand that I currently use is called Ballo Designs on Etsy. I think it costs around like $160 or so for a retractable banner, but definitely do recommend them. They ship my order out pretty quickly within a week of uploading the print, I think. So check them out if you want. There's probably other brands out there that are good, but that's currently the brand that I use. So the next item I recommend is also of a similar vein to that banner, and it's a acrylic sign. This has my logo and my TCG name on it, but you can also like link it to your socials with your QR codes, or you can use it for payment methods. So I have Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, PayPal. Those are probably the 4 most common payment methods, that besides cash, of course. Even though there are some methods to charge back, I haven't had any issues with that, luckily. So still be careful out there. If it is a large transaction, honestly prefer mostly cash unless it is a trusted vendor, but definitely have some form of online payment, because nowadays most things are digital and people aren't carrying physical cash too often. Okay, so now let's talk about the content creation side of things, what equipment I use, and also just helpful for general security as well. You don't necessarily have to use this for content creation, but I use a DJI Osmo Pocket 3, super high quality camera. I really did enjoy the brand essentially. I was using a Osmo Action 4, I think, or maybe just called the Action 4. That one was also pretty good, just not as high quality, so upgraded it pretty recently. And also for the microphone I use, it's same brand, DJI. It's the Mic 2, so very seamless integration because, of course, it is the same brand. I think the mic was around $80 to $100, and the Pocket camera, the Pocket 3, is pretty expensive. I think there's a Pocket 4 right now, which I don't know if it's that much better, but still $500, $600. I don't think it was more than $600, but pretty expensive. There are cheaper cameras out there, but if you do want to take this more seriously, I just recommend getting something quality off the start because it's something that you'll be using for a long time. And of course, you don't have to use it for Pokemon. You can just use it for general vlogs, anything else like that. So definitely recommend those cameras and the mic. Yes. I also recommend getting a tripod to hold your camera. Make sure it's compatible, of course, but the one I got off of Amazon was $20-30 and it works well with the Osmo Pocket 3 that I have. So this next item that I have is also related to the content creation aspect of things, but it's also just useful to have in general, is a power bank. I use the Anker power bank. What happens is that during the show, if you're recording content on the Osmo Pocket 3, the battery on the camera does not last for the full 8 hours of the show. So it maybe lasts for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So you need much more battery storage. So you basically can just plug in a USB-C into this power bank, connect it to the DJI while it's charging or while it's recording. So that way it can charge and last the whole show. It will stop charging once it reaches to 100% power. So just check the camera throughout the show to make sure that it's still charging. And also just useful to have if you need to charge your phone, earbuds, whatever during a show. Actually, don't charge your earbuds. Make sure you're staying focused to the customers. But yeah, something I recommend is definitely the power bank. So the last two items for this video that are completely optional but still recommended are a bag to carry your cash. This one is just a regular Lululemon bag, but super nice. I think you should have some form of bag of carrying cash because you are going to be spending things and you don't want it to get lost. And the last thing is these card risers. These are a little bit warped because I left them in the car, which don't leave them in a car when it's hot because they they do not maintain its structure, but they basically allow you to fit more cards in your display case. Also, another caveat is that you need a taller display case. Like, it needs to have some space, otherwise the risers can't fit. So the Amazon display cases that I linked earlier, those would not work with these. But if you use a Xeon display case, the risers should be fine, and they'll allow you to fit more cards in your case because there's a little bit more overlap, I guess. So that's something if you're looking for a little bit more space or you have too much inventory, definitely recommend the risers. And yeah. Okay, so that is all the equipment that I use at the card shows that I've been going to. There might have been a few small things that I might have missed, so as always, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you have enjoyed this video and this sort of educational content, please subscribe, hit the notification bell. I do want to do a lot more of this content in the future, and I'll see you for the next video.